All right, I want to bring back in my guest, Brian Levin. He's from the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at Cal State San Bernardino, and Qasim Rashid. He's the spokesman for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA and a Harvard Fellow. Welcome to both of you. Brian, everybody is wondering why. Why did these people do this terrible thing yesterday? This married couple, they just had a baby, 6-month-old baby. The husband, he just attended a holiday party at his place of employment. He stayed there for a time, supposedly argued with a fellow employee, and then he left, got his wife, and police say then they returned armed to the hilt with their faces covered. What do you make of it?
You know, it's interesting. I was looking down because I was looking at my testimony before Congress just a few weeks ago, and what I said was that active shooters are quite prevalent among extremists. And one of the things that I think is important to recognize is when we look at mass or symbolic violence, we oftentimes focus on the ideological first. And what I have is a typology which actually is more broad. We have the ideologically motivated, we also have the psychologically dangerous, and then we have someone who's seeking personal benefit or revenge. And you can have one that's primary and others that are secondary or tertiary. And at this point, we simply don't know. But what I told Congress just weeks ago was we have loners and small cells even, people who will sculpt their own brand of hatreds. What I can tell you is these people feel aggrieved in some way. They feel that there's been an injustice and they act out violently. And unfortunately in the United States, our homicide rate is almost 4 times that of the UK, more than 4 times that of Germany, and we have thousands of people killed every year with handguns. Interestingly, people have been killed annually with long rifles of the kind that we see here, that's a subset, that's actually declined over the last 4 or 5 years by almost 25%.
It's just, all right, I hear you. So, Qasim, I'll ask you this question. Saeed Farouk, he's the husband in this case. He had a good job. He was employed by the county, made $70,000 a year. He was born in Illinois, just got married, had a 6-month-old baby girl. It's just hard to fathom that he had some terrible incident in his life and felt the need to do this.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, and this is my invitation, the invitation of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community to all Americans. We have one of the largest mosques in San Bernardino County. We're going to be holding a prayer vigil tonight at 6 p.m. and we want all of our fellow Americans to join us. You know, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, as Muslims who believe in the Messiah Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, has been at the forefront of serving humanity since day one. And what we find is that when these kinds of tragedies happen, the worst thing that we can do is cut ourselves off from one another. We need to find ways to come together, stand united against extremism. And this is our olive branch that we want to maintain, that all people of all faiths or of no faith, come join us, let's mourn together, let's break bread together, and let's find ways to maintain this dialogue. You know, right now, Pew Research reports that nearly 200 million Americans have never met a Muslim before. And there is an ignorance gap that we want to try to fill together by working together, breaking bread together, serving humanity together. And you know, I hope we have an overwhelming turnout tonight at our prayer vigil in San Bernardino County Mosque. I think that's going to be the step forward to ensure peace, ensure understanding, and to prevent future attacks from happening in any capacity.
Qasim, if this couple was inspired by terrorism overseas, how will that affect your community?
Well, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has been very clear on our stance on terrorism. There's never an excuse for terrorism whatsoever. In fact, in the coming days, you're going to see what we were calling the True Islam campaign, a campaign where we will be asking our fellow Americans and our fellow Muslim Americans to join us on fundamental principles of freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, equality of women, condemnation of all forms of terrorism. The founder of our community, the Messiah Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, over 120 years ago wrote that the concept of jihad of the sword is dead. There is no place for violent jihad in Islam. The true Islam that Prophet Muhammad taught is the jihad of the pen, of intellectual discourse, of dialogue, of service to all humanity. So if it is found by the authorities that these two people acted with some type of terrorism in mind, inspired by some radical group, it will reinforce the need for us to come together. It will reinforce the Ahmadiyya Muslim community's motto of love for all, hatred for none, of finding ways to educate one another from each other, and ultimately, with that education, with that service to humanity, truly conquer terrorism. That's the key to conquering terrorism.
All right, I have to leave it there. Qasim Rashid, Brian Levin, thanks to both of you. I'll be right back.